The Orozco murals, I didn't know anything about them until my Lat's 41 course, and then I we went down to the reserves and saw them, and that was my first time ever seeing or hearing about them. And it was just fascinating that this man, this artist from Mexico, was allowed to come in and paint these things and paint these shoes on the wall, especially here at Dartmouth.
To put a lot of issues on the forefront, especially in the Dartmouth community. I think that's what made Guillermo especially want to do it. Because we're in New England. It's like, let's push a few buttons.
In a community as conservative as this, as Dartmouth, to have murals like this and have subjects being addressed, such as just putting nudity, I think, in a performance, or having, a woman with a strap on. It's kind of things that just boom right in your face and force you to, can be troubling for many people. But if you look at it past the sexuality and past to look at the underlying meaning, you can take a lot from it.
We were just talking and trying to figure out what we could do and what I would be willing to do. And so I mentioned I was Haitian, and he's like, well, do you want to deal with any of those stereotypes? And, I was just, going off on stereotypes that I've heard. And he said, well, what about, like a voodoo priestess? That I was like, what, like a bruja? And he was like, yeah, something like that. I was like, sure.
I'm a voodoo priestess and a hip-hop dancer, which is interesting because the voodoo priestess thing is interesting because I'm Haitian. And it's like, it's part of my culture and history that I never embraced or never knew much about. So I told my mom that I was going to be a voodoo priestess, and she's like, you? And what? Especially since I was born here. But it's interesting because that's all people know about Haitians, that they're into black magic or voodoo or things of that nature. When my mom tells me stories about people invoking spirits, and I'm like, interesting. Why are you telling me this? It definitely gives me somewhat of an appreciation and sort of a wow, that it does mean something. It's not a magic trick. Made me appreciate being Haitian and made me understand that a little bit more, which I definitely am grateful for. And I know my mom is probably grateful for it too. It's being said that in all of us, we're not just some 2D image. I mean, we're just not what you see in the mirror, what you see and look at. There's some depth to that. And people have so many preconceived notions about everything, every culture, every religion, what have you, and they never really take the time out to look.
I think it was definitely intention to make people think and to talk about it. Like if anything else, like if, having people confused about it is good because they'll talk about it and just wonder.
I think it definitely heightened awareness, and in terms of watching, and like they weren't just looking at us, they were observing and trying to see and trying to pick little things, and I think that's what we should do. I think we fail to do that a lot. We just take things as they are, and we don't ask enough questions, and we don't try to delve into certain areas, whether it be because of fear or I don't know what, but it's something, it's something that I'm guilty of too, and I know this, and I realize this more and more. But the only way to get through that is to ask questions, and if you don't understand, try to understand, or ask someone who knows a little bit more so that you can enrich your understanding. That's what it boils down to.
When I was on there, like there would be a crowd, but then there'd be this space, and I'd see figures against the wall, like just trying to get as far as possible, which is, expected, and just sort of like, why didn't you come closer? But there was definitely audience connection, because even though they were against the wall, it wasn't like being in Spalding or somewhere where there's seats, and they were standing, so they were still, and like the people who I could see, who came close enough for me to see them, like I was able to make eye contact, which is, audience interaction right there.
would never have imagined that I'd be a voodoo priestess.
I don't think I've ever seen a show like that either.
There was never a show like that, and there will never be a show quite like that.
It's fantastic and it's amazing. And it's like, while I am, I put on the character as the voodoo priestess, it's like, I think it's each character that we're each portraying or just giving across. I think it's elements of ourselves that are actually coming out, because that's why it's so hard to get out of character. Because when we're in it, we put so much of ourselves in it, and then we get down and it's still like, wow, I didn't know that about myself, or I didn't know I had that in me, and where does it come from? And having this opportunity to just be a part of that magic, and so to speak, and just see the transformation in fellow students, and it's Guillermo Gomez Peña, we're just like, wow.